right, everybody, good morning. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules on UCY.TV. Good morning. How's everybody today? I'm kinda hot and sweaty. It's warm out here in the office this morning. It's been shut up all evening with these machines running, so always first thing it's kinda nasty out here, but I got the fan in the window. Did not kick on the air conditioning, but I might have to. But, I don't know. It'll work out alright. So, I hope everyone is doing well. I haven't talked to you in a couple days. I know I saw everybody in chat last night. We had a pretty good time. It was rocking. That, After Dark show was great. They were talking about what to do if a band of dogs came. Would you eat them or kill them or poison them? What if you had a child molester in your group and he was your gunsmith? There were some great questions, there really were. And I usually don't play along too much, but I was. I had fun. So, I don't know. Hey, I just made it to chat. Look at everybody here. Good morning. Yeah, all kinds of stuff been going on. I don't even know where to start. Some stuff that I ran across yesterday afternoon. I started digging through my mailbox for all my DARPA emails that I haven't had time to look at for the last month or two. And, oh my God, why did I even do that? Because you want to talk about, absolute freaking insanity. I mean, I don't know, do we even, start out of the gate with this? I don't think so. I think we're gonna hang back and do some light stuff for a little bit, but remember those, brain nanobots I told you guys about a while ago? Well, they've now started to roll the stuff out, and pretty much I found a couple stories. One was out of the MIT Technology Review, and one was a CBS News article, and they were both talking about this new treatment that DARPA has developed that helps, it's a brain, quote unquote, brain-computer interface that helps to control feelings. Let's say that again. A brain-computer interface that helps control feelings. The subtitle is, a $70 million program will try to develop brain implants able to regulate emotions in the mentally ill. Now, when I first read that, first thing that came to mind was that dumb law that they were trying to get through in New York about how annoying a cop was illegal. And remember, I called to, I don't remember the dude's name, but the guy in the, state senate, or the state house, whatever he was, who wrote that bill. I called his office, because I wanted a definition as to who was defining annoying. Because I may be annoying just by talking to somebody. I know people I annoy just by opening my mouth. But others, it may take me, I don't know, being drunk and obnoxious to be annoying. You know what I mean? Who's defining annoying? So the same thing here. I started thinking about the implications of this brain-computer interface. And I mean, remember, we looked at the brain nanobots. So we know that this is way more sinister than what we're even talking about here. And they were to go in and reprogram memories for PTSD patients. And if you read these stories, that's exactly what they're touting this as. Those poor PTSD patients that we bring back from overseas. Yeah. That we put into the situations that gave them PTSD. So when you send them home, then you say they're mentally ill. So anyway, as I started just kind of getting my blood pressure up and thinking about this yesterday, I was like, who's defining mentally ill? You know, another one of those subjective terms. A lot of my friends think, or at least thought 20 years ago, that I was mentally ill. Now they kind of look at, like we've talked about before, all the things that I've said over the years, and they're like, wow, Jill wasn't crazy after all. No, she wasn't. So, whose yardstick are we looking at for the definition of mentally ill? Well, wait, How about Star Trek's? Because there was another story I started combing through. Like I said, there's probably 10,000 DARPA scrapes from Google. I haven't looked at them in months on end. So they're all in my mailbox. But, this next story was this is what I put, how will they diagnose mental illness? Well, an Android app, of course. Yes. They are now going to give doctors Android apps that will help them determine whether or not you're mentally ill. And it'll come down to even how you hold the phone, how you interact with the phone and your balance, the questions and how you answer them. So look at that. We're going to have robot psychiatrists. Just like the Watson, who's becoming the robot doctor that they're rolling out, IBM's artificial intelligence monster that they now are repurposing for part of, to cover this universal healthcare, as they're never going to have enough doctors. So they are now putting Watson out as a service that doctors can subscribe to, and Watson acts like the big medical brain. You plug in your symptoms and Watson spits out 10 different diagnoses to explore. Honestly, talking about the dumbing down of America, if you want to just kind of flip this a little bit, first of all, I find all this absolutely frightening. We're going to have an Android app determining whether or not you get the nanobots in your brain to be reprogrammed. Now, I'm going to read those stories in a little bit, except I've only had one sip of coffee and it's still kind of early to get in that deep. So I just wanted to kind of scratch the surface right now. But an Android app determining whether or not you're mentally ill. How many of us would actually pass? Because I doubt very many. If you take a look at the new DSM-5, that is oppositional defiant disorder, right? What was the other one? Come on, toss them out there. There were a whole bunch of them that in this new DSM, we were like, oh my God. Isn't depression a mental disease now? Isn't it defined? Everybody knows, and especially manic depression or, what's it called when you have a really horrible episode? Years ago I had one where you're just so clinical depression. That's some serious ass shit. But I never took meds for it. Friends, support. It takes a while, you gotta lick your wounds. That's how you become a big girl or boy. You always have somebody medicating and putting Band-Aids on your wounds and running around and doing things for you. You never learn to grow up to be responsible. Or to learn to grow up to learn the consequences of things. So pain is a good thing at times. I don't need I don't need no Android app. I don't need an Android app to tell me I'm mentally ill. I might be mentally ill in some circles, but in my circle, I'm just fine. Honestly, I'm not mentally ill, but my brain works different than others. So, again, it's whose definition of mentally ill? It takes people a while. They need to get me. Once you get me, I'm okay, but I used to scare people when I worked. I'm pretty intense at times. And people get threatened by that or something. I don't know why. Because I got a mission to do. Point A to point B. And I just hate to dawdle. And I got 10,000 other things to do. So chop chop. Let's go. People don't like that. But I don't know. Lazy shit pisses me off. Whiners piss me off. You know, and then, and complainers. People complain. So then you go to help. Then you feel obligated to help. Then you want to help. And then they're like, oh. I don't know. No, I'm not even going to go there. Never mind. I am not even going to go there. Just, I don't know. People are very weird. All of us have our own quirks. Everybody has their own thing. So I do not see how giving an Android app, as a matter of fact, we have a psychiatrist on staff here. I need to send those 2 stories after I get off the air today to Dr. Simon and ask him to talk about the Android app psychiatrist on Sunday. Maybe he will. That's pretty messy. Exactly, Saul. Salvaner says mentally ill equals not conforming with the rules of society. You are 100%. That's how they're steering all this. We're seeing the shooting. And of course this is all spinning up now after this big spate of mess, shooting, stabbing, thingy, whatevers they are. They're like, look at how crazy these people were. What? You got mad? Oh my God, here's something else I want to talk about. Did you guys see this case with the 12-year-old girls? I was so disturbed. These 2 12-year-old girls plotted a murder of their friends based upon some evil online character that they were trying to appease. The character itself reminded me a lot of a cross between Cthulhu and this monster, and I don't remember what they were called, but I know Ozzy, if you were around, he'd remember. It was out of one of the newer Doctor Who episodes. Those creatures that look like the Cthulhu creatures with all the tentacles hanging out of their face, and they walked around with the glowing orbs in their hands. That's what that creature looked like. He had these tentacles coming out of his back. He had an orb. He was wearing like a bowler hat and tuxedo. But it was some website with fiction horror stories written on it, like short stories. And these 2 12-year-old girls plotted. They stayed over their friend's house. They slept overnight. The next morning, they let her out into the woods and they stabbed her 19 times. And then they left her in the woods, except she wasn't dead. She dragged herself out and somebody found her, and then they caught the 2 girls. The 2 girls have been arrested as adults. And are now, they were, I don't know, I've never been in jail, so I don't know what it's called. But, when they first come in and they bring you in and they say, you're gonna go sit now, there's no bail, a hearing maybe. And now we're gonna, now you're gonna have a trial. So these 2 12-year-old girls are in jail for attempted murder on their friend from a character online. Now, I started trying to think about, let's put these dots together now about this mental illness thing and all these crazy people that have just been coming out of the woodwork everywhere that have been in the news, and then these girls. And I mean, this isn't the first one. We just had that 9-year-old girl, and maybe we can talk about that too. I published a video about that the other day that was from a few weeks ago, and no one ever talked about it. A 9-year-old girl in Oregon that police arrested and booked her in an adult jail. They arrested and booked her for an altercation with another 9-year-old girl a week before. In her bathing suit, while she was playing in the sprinkler. They showed up and they handcuffed her. I mean, I am almost speechless sometimes. I mean, 9 and 12 years old. Now, I can see 2 things here. A, I do think some of our youth are getting pretty messed up by some of the shit that they've done to them through the media, through these violent video games, through the messed up programming they're trying to put them through in school now. These ideas they're putting into their heads. You know, watch some Disney programming and see how messed up you're going to be. Short circuit. I don't know. I mean, Disney is pretty messed up. I can't even, if I had the option of deleting those channels from my lineup, I would. But, you know, when you take a look at the portrayal that they're making now, where your children aren't your children anymore, right? They load them full of hormones and the milk and whatever else, so they're going into puberty at 9. Now they're arresting 9-year-olds for having a fight and booking them in an adult jail. I mean, they're trying to eliminate the protections of childhood. But should the protections of childhood be there? I mean, I have seen a few pretty heinous crimes out of what I would have previously considered a juvenile, who I previously would have said there's no way that kid could have known what they were doing. You don't put a 12-year-old away until they're 60. Well, these two girls, I gotta say, I haven't heard them speak, but in the 3 clips that I watched, they were sure fully aware of what they were doing, and it was premeditated, apparently, for a long period of time. Now, we have to wonder how many of these children, and not the 9-year-old in Oregon, I mean, she really didn't do anything wrong, they just had a fight. How many 9-year-old girls don't have arguments in clubs where, you know, this club doesn't like that club? It happens. We used to have our summer clubs, you know, all of us on the court. And there was us against them. We were always fighting, you know, and somebody always had an attitude problem. That doesn't mean that you're criminal. But when they push this to the point where, I don't know, Junior can't sit still in class. So here, we're going to give him drugs. Now look at how good Junior is. And in that Santa Barbara shooting, that kid had been under treatment for like 3 different doctors for years. And the parents, and I don't know, I mean, half these stories are just such a crock of shit. You don't know what to believe and what not to believe. But at least looking at the basic facts, they all have something in common, you know? They have these psycho kids, pseudo-adults that now look, all of a sudden are becoming dangerous. We're all becoming dangerous. This new, in this whole big scandal about swapping the 5 Taliban out of Guantanamo for this former, I don't even know what he was. He was some armed services. Well, I don't know if he was Army, Navy. He probably was Army or Marines, I would imagine. I think it was ground forces he was in. You know, that scandal was all about, we swapped 5 Taliban. In the beginning, it was like heralded as a great thing. We swapped 5 Taliban for a captive American. Yeah! USA! As JJ would say. Till they started digging into it, and then they're like, wait! What? We're negotiating with terrorists? What? We just let out 5, and apparently the 5 guys in Guantanamo they let out were like leaders of Taliban-y psycho groups. We just let out 5 leaders to go? For what? An American that abandoned his post? That left in the middle of the night because he didn't want to fight anymore and went and lived with the Taliban? And then said he was captive. What? You didn't go to Congress and get approval? But wait, you were telling Congress that you've been talking about this for years. This is the clip I saw last night when they were criticizing, like, why the White House didn't go to Congress to get approval to do this prisoner exchange. And this general or whoever he was comes out and he says, look, we've been talking about this for years. So, for Congress to say they didn't know, I mean, are you kidding me? We've been talking about this for years. Oh my God. So, again though, so you get this vet that they're rescuing that came home, and then you find out that he wasn't a good vet. He wasn't a hero. We herald him as a hero, and then we bring him back and he's not a hero. Look. I mean, I look at that. When you put large images like that into the public's eye, regardless of what the end story is, whatever that first story is that gets the sensationalization that gets out there, that's what people remember. People don't pay attention anymore. So they catch sound bites. And it becomes imprinted, and that's the truth. And it doesn't matter if 3 months from now they retract and they come out with a whole new story. You know what? That story didn't get headlines. So Bubba didn't see that version of the story. So Bubba believes now in his mind, look at this vet. Look at this hero that we just rescued, but wait, it's all tarnished. He abandoned his post. Look, bad vet coming home now, not on the side of the American public. You know, they've been working on this demonization of all of us for a long time. But I think right now they're working on veterans. This whole mental illness thing. I mean, getting back to these nanobots. They've been talking about that for a long time. And oh my God, this PTSD that we created by sending you over there and asking you to kill small children. Well, we got a fix for that. Just take this little pill. All right. You know what? That's kind of serious for 25 minutes after 9. I'm going to backpedal just a little. We're going to do some fun stuff, I think. Hold on. How's that for a morning? Get it off my chest. I don't know. All that stuff was swirling through my head while I was sleeping last night. Now it's all gone. Show's over. No, I'm just kidding. All right. You know what? There were some good what the fuck stories over the last couple of weeks. So I sometimes like to do those, and it's Wednesday. Actually, here is that crazy online character. Hold on. You know what? Let me kill the feed so it's not playing back to my PC, and I'll bring myself in. Because I do have a clip here with that Cthulhu-esque character. If anyone has read H.P. Lovecraft when you were younger, like I did, it was psychological horror. There was no blood, not like today. Like, today, we are just so desensitized to so many things. H.P. Lovecraft just used a lot of imagery, and he was so good at using words to paint landscapes, and he excelled in painting scary, dank, dark, creepy landscapes. He was great at it. But there was never any blood and guts, but there was always some horrible, just around the corner, can't quite see, but holy shit, you're scared monster. Well, you know, add to that then, like I said, that Doctor Who episode, I don't remember what those things were called. They weren't Daleks, but they were the things with the tentacles on their faces and the glowing balls, but that's what this reminds me of, is a cross between the two. But here, let me play this, because I just want you guys to hear this with the 12-year-olds. Cops say online character inspired stabbing by 12-year-old of friend 19 times. Now, another thing I started thinking about is, you know, how they're trying to demonize everyone and they're defining normalcy. And most of us are square pegs that don't fit into that round hole, but they're coming after all these different groups. So children, veterans, patriots, you know, anybody who's been on SSRIs for ADHD. But I'm also seeing here now a mythological online character on some writing site that to me didn't even sound like it was famous, just some online site with short stories, supposedly motivated these 12-year-olds to attempt premeditated murder on their friends. I mean, are they going to start doing stuff like this and then going that the internet is dangerous? Because they think so. I think, I am pretty sure that with that guy that they just got released with the Taliban, there was something in there as well about online radicalization. And I mean, God, the information you can find out on the internet could make you evil. So we might just have to clamp down on it. And those pesky internet rumors, those internet rumors are fueling unrest. They're fueling protest. Well, we'll just have to fix that and make sure that it's Ministry of Truth approved. And there's a lot of chips that are moving around the board right now, I think. And I think that they're hoping to have a very specific effect. So anyway, here, I want to play this. The cops say online character inspired the stabbing. Hopefully this works. I don't think I changed any settings. Dun, 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 dun.
Can you just sort of get me up to speed on what creepypasta.com is, what kind of stories they tell, and who this Slender Man character is?
Right. Well, creepypasta is one of those great internet terms that makes no sense when you first hear it. Creepypasta comes from copypasta, which itself comes from copy-paste. It's this form of very short, usually web-only fiction. Creepypasta is horror fiction. So, and the Creepypasta Wiki is literally just a site that compiles different stories about this. Some Slender Man stories, lots of other stories. So very clearly from the sounds of things, you get some very confused girls because there's nothing to the site having to do with, Slender Man runs this site or anything like that. It's a form of fiction that gets shared a lot on the internet. It's also worth noting that Slender Man stories are on probably thousands and thousands of different websites. I do have the statement from Creepypasta Wiki that I wanted to mention because I think it is important. They responded obviously by saying that their heart goes out to the victim, and then they make just a very obvious point. They say there's a line between fiction and reality, and it is up to you to realize where that line is. We're a literature site, not some sort of satanic site. They go on to say that this is probably obvious to the vast majority of people who visit the site, but obviously you had some very confused girls here. Slender Man got his start on a different website back in 2009 on these Something Awful forums. It actually started as sort of a joke. People were creating these fictional paranormal type photographs. They were photoshopping and seeing who could make the best image. This one guy, Alec Knudsen, created an image of some children with what's become now this sort of iconic Slender Man figure in the background. Very slim, no face, black suit, black hat. So he just kind of created this, and it took off. It went viral, as these things tend to do, and now he's all over the web.
So there you go. Creepypasta. Having trouble distinguishing between fantasy and reality. I'm going to tell you, I know that there are a lot of you out there that like to play your video games. I was a big Quake fan way back when, but I grew out of it quickly. And one of the things that, my friends and I used to debate is whether or not it desensitized you. It's so realistic now. And with these, the Oculus Prime goggles that are coming out from Google, they want to immerse you into the machine, right? That's what it's about. Eventually we're looking at that augmented cognition. They want you to be merged with the machine. When you watch TV, you get tuned right into whatever. Honestly, I watch, and now that the weather's warm, I probably don't watch at all. I don't even see the TV on. But in the wintertime, 1 hour after dinner, we do science programming or a survival show, one of the survival guys. And I'm good with that. But you know what? You get sucked right in. It becomes your reality. And when you disconnect, you most certainly see how strong that is. Now, imagine being like you used to be. The TV was always on in the background and everything was always, droning. When I go to my parents' house, the TV's always droning in the background. Drives me crazy. I can't stand to hear that noise. And then the commercial, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, turn it off. But that is such a huge distraction. When you call your relative and the answer, and you haven't talked to them in quite a while. I don't know, even just a week. I can't talk right now, my show's on. What? Kind of an excuse is that? I can't talk right now, my show is on. Maybe 25 years ago when I didn't have a VCR because I was too poor, and David Duchovny was on and it was Friday night. Hey! Call me back Saturday morning because I can't talk right now, my show is on. But in this day and age, everybody's got DVR. TV's on 24/7. Everything's on demand and on the web. You can watch your show any damn time. The fact that you be telling your family members or your grandchildren, I can't talk right now because my show is on, it's kind of ridiculous. But it also explains a mindset. How they've sucked you in. This alter reality. I was reading a study the one night, and they discovered that really depressed people do well when they watch reruns of their favorite shows. I don't know, I think they had somebody in one of those, ECG helmets, the ones with all the leads on it, where they can track all the stimuli going on in the brain. But here's what they postulated, is that the reason why, like the brain showed real calmness, and the body showed real calmness, like you were in a calm, happy state. And they think the reason why people watching reruns of their favorite shows make them calm and happy is because we associate with the characters as friends. Now, how messed up is that? The Fonz is my fan, man! Fire up those old episodes of Happy Days. Like, that's messed up. They played the Jedi mind trick on you. So literally, we feel that we're friends with these online fictional characters. So when you hear about this, I don't even remember what the website was called, Psychopasta website, that these girls are so, and I don't even think he really talked about that, but I have another story here, another clip. These girls associated themselves with this creepy character, albeit an evil character versus, somebody cool like the Fonz or whoever. You start to see that this has been kind of in the works for a long time. I mean, and that study that I was talking about your reruns of your favorite show, hey, they're absolutely right. Like, think about it. Think about some of your most favorite shows out there and how good it would feel to see some of those old episodes. 'Cause it would. And you probably sit there and eat it up and tell whoever called, go away. My program is on. I can't talk right now. Right? So, I don't know. I think they've been mind screwing us for a really long time. I know they have been. But it's the end game now. It's all coming to fruition because the technology is finally caught up to the evilness that they've wanted to do for a long time. It doesn't require scalpels and monkeys strapped into chairs anymore. Now they're just gonna take the little injector and go boop, and those little nanobots will do their bidding. Alright, Here's another clip, in regards to those girls. Actually, this is a clip of the girls. I think that they're in the courtroom in this one. So hold on.
With her head hung and long blonde hair nearly covering her face, 12-year-old Morgan Geyser appears in court. Geyser and her friend, now co-defendant, 12-year-old Anissa Wire, aren't even teenagers, but they are charged as adults with attempted homicide.
I recognize the young age, but it's still unbelievable, I guess, if you want to put it that way. What's outlined in the criminal complaint.
The criminal complaint says Wire and Geyser plotted for months to kill their friend, another 12-year-old.
Both suspects had a fascination with a fictitious character that often posted to a website that is a collection of small stories about death and horror.
After the three woke up Saturday morning from a sleepover at Wire's house, the two acted out the horrific plan.
Once there, one suspect held the victim down, while the other suspect stabbed her 19 times in the arms, legs, and torso.
Geyser's family left the courtroom in tears, refusing to speak. When we pressed Wire's father about the crime, he offered this.
Just shocked as well by everyone else.
We have no comments at this time.
What can you tell me about your daughter? I mean, obviously in this life she's being displayed in this way. What can you tell me?
Only that we have no comments at this time.
Geyser's attorney did offer this apology to the victim's family.
Morgan's parents are very sad about what has happened. They're horrified. And our condolences to everyone.
Were there any signs that parents saw that they were disturbed?
That's a very good question, and that is being looked into. I don't have that information in front of me right now. Part of our investigation, as you guys know, is to dig into the entire lives of the victim and the suspects.
Now, that last statement, part of their job is to dig into the lives of the accused and the suspects, or the victim and the suspects. That's what they want. They want to dig into everybody's lives. You know, this is really a huge travesty. And what there were a couple videos that showed the courtroom from a few different angles. And one thing I noticed is that the one network, because they were minors, had blurred the faces of both the girls in the courtroom. But this clip, and let me see who's responsible for this. I think this is a CNN. Yeah, this is a CNN clip. CNN showed their faces. Now, granted, this is a capital crime, so they're probably going to be charged as adults, I would imagine. They had these two girls in a real courtroom. They weren't in juvie. But charging our children as adults, guys, there's something really wrong with that. Either the system is broken, or the world that our children are being brought up in is broken, because this did not, I mean, how often are you seeing this now? First it was grannies. Now it's children. And before it was CPS. Now it's capital punishment. I thought I read somewhere that these two girls, if they are fully convicted, and I guess there was a lot of evidence that this was premeditated for a long time. They had been planning this. They could go away until they're 60. Now, I'm not saying, and I mean, honestly, I don't know all the details of the story, but it does sound like they might be guilty. On the other hand, who hasn't been 12 or 14, and especially with like peer pressure, and what was that movie of all those little heinous girls in that movie, Little Miss Bitches or something, whatever it was called. You know, kids can be pretty damn cruel and do some pretty horrible things. I mean, look at the movie Carrie, where they dump pig's blood on her at the dance. You know, kids can be pretty cruel. But this just takes it to a whole new level. And what is it that is confusing our children between fantasy and reality? It's TV. It's the video games. Apparently it's the internet now. Now, I'm not saying go ban the internet, but I'm saying that there's some damage that was done long before this to break down that reality versus fantasy barrier to where now they have difficulty distinguishing between the two. It's almost like what happens on TV is real, but it's not. Some of it might be, but even the news is half fantasy. You know what I mean? Don't believe anything you see. But most of the public believes everything they see and everything they hear. They don't have the wherewithal to question or to distinguish between the two. And as we move forward, they're trying to completely make that distinction between online and offline, or real versus simulated. They want to get rid of that. You know, I mean, with animation and stuff, look at a computer simulation of taking a rocket ship to Mars. Hey, you can pretty much convince me that it was real. There's some pretty incredible graphics they have now in the science shows when we're talking deep space from, you know, computer generated graphics based on, you know, research and probes and whatever. I mean, they can make it look as real as they want. So I don't know. When I see that stuff, how do you fight against that? You know, and then we go back to some of the cases we saw in Texas last year, and then New Mexico, and then we saw one in Georgia, and then we saw one in, maybe it was Montana. We had the roadside body cavity searches in Texas. I don't think we did any roadside body cavity searches in New Mexico, but we got up close and personal for 7 hours at the hospital. And enemas. I think there were 3 or 4 cases of that in New Mexico. In Georgia, we had the forced blood draw when they wouldn't submit to the breathalyzer. So they had like the instant on the spot search warrant to drag them off to the courthouse or the precinct and put him into that electric chair-esque chair where they strapped his arms, his legs, and his head down and forcibly took blood. And then the same thing in Montana, except this time it was like an electric chair. They even put a bag over the guy's head. I mean, that was some of the most chilling shit I have ever seen. I heard Stokes yesterday talking about, he was actually reading that civilian internee manual that I've read before off of publicintelligence.net that talks about the camps, the internee camps, and to keep the population safe, we all have to be vaccinated. And it will be law that you will have to be vaccinated. And if you're not, you're putting the population at risk, and they have every right to forcibly vaccinate you. Well, let's just take this one little teeny tiny step further. How about you're a danger to society? Through one of these psychological tests, we've determined that you have some traits that make you undesirable, that make you mentally ill, according to our Android app's definition. So don't worry. The men in the white coats will be around next week to hold you down forcibly and make sure they get those little nanobots in your arm. You know, they've had nanotechnology, at least publicly, since the beginning of the 90s, I'd have to say. We've mentioned this before. Scientific American cover. I will never forget. I was in my apartment. Days of X-Files. And they had an electron microscope photograph of a nanobot on the front cover. And I remember, I just read Neuromancer, actually, by, I don't remember the guy who wrote it. But it was like the precursor to The Matrix. It was a book, The Neuromancer. And instead of plugging in, you jacked in. Was how you got to the internet. And you had these glasses that were like augmented reality type stuff. And now, I mean, look at how weird it is that, you know, that's really kind of the way they went, but that was how they interacted and connected. But nanotechnology back in those days was just like, wow. Look at how microscopic these things are. I mean, we're talking electron microscope. They're at the level of atoms, molecules, you know, I mean, they're tiny little things. Tiny little things that could be self-assembling. Speaking of Mr. Ozzy Skateboard, hold on. Let me go into my mailbox because that just reminded me Mr. Ozzy Skateboard sent me something yesterday. I hadn't heard from him in a while. Yes, they were the replicators. Actually, that's what his email said. These are replicators. So hold on, we gotta get there. Oh, they're scary looking. What is it? Is it just a picture? Oh, it says video player. I was hoping there were a video. Oh,
My name's Tim. I'm a chef. I'm here in sunny Miami, Florida, in Austin, Texas, and today I'm going to...
And there's an ad. Maybe. Airing now. Click to watch. Yeah, here we go.
Assembly is about how independent parts come together on their own to build precise things. I'm Skylar Tibbetts, and I'm the director of the Self-Assembly Lab at MIT. We want materials to be a new medium to make decisions, potentially be intelligent, reconfigure, change our lives, materials that have robot-like things, but with no robots. We tend to use large-scale, abundant, readily available materials like plastics, foams, metals. We program our materials based on the response to energy. We use moisture, but you can imagine in the future you use heat, you use light, current, many other energy sources. So we take a strip of wire metal and we mold it into a shape. We program the metal and the structure of the metal to remember that shape. I'm dumping in 180 degree Fahrenheit water. And then I take this wire and I'll dip it in water, and then it'll transform completely on its own into this very precise spirograph shape. And it's completely repeatable. In this project, there's two materials. There's a black material and a white material that are printed. And we print with these very precise materials in very precise places. So it folds from a flexible, record-like shape into a rigid, saddle-like shape. So you can imagine these materials self-fold into shoes, into garments, into components for planes, into tires that change grip, where the materials are smarter and they actuate themselves. This prototype, when you push down, it bulges, showing how a pipe could expand based on capacity. And then you can imagine pipes that shrink to change flow rate, so they pinch or they undulate. And in the future, we hope that I wouldn't need to actually change this through force, and it could adapt completely on its own. We're always excited about doing things that are seemingly impossible. We're pushing the limit. If it seems like we can't, let's try to do it.
Yeah, you're pushing the limit to like mind bending. Here, I'm going to drop that one into chat. That was from Mr. Ozzy Skateboard. There was some pretty whacked out stuff. They want to make...
Amazing.
Hold on.
Clear for 6 days.
Hold on.
At the first sign of my allergies, my doctor recommended taking 1 Claritin every day of my allergy season for continuous relief. 21.
Wow. Sorry about that. That just continued playing whatever it was playing, but there was a pretty, that video was pretty intensive. That, was sucking my system resources there for a second. Intelligent materials are kind of scary, guys. Inanimate objects, I mean, they couldn't literally think for themselves. He said there was no robot involved. Now, nanobots there are. There are self-replicating nanobots. We've looked at quite a number of those. These didn't happen to have nanobots in them, but they had materials that had memory. And I know that they had been talking about this stuff a long time ago in regards to car bodies. And I think car bodies would be a great idea. So when you get a little dink in the front quarter panel, it fixes itself. How wonderful would that be? But what we keep forgetting about these new technologies, and I have friends that are so all about technology. I used to be too, until I started seeing how this is enslaving us, how it's taking away our freedom, our privacy, and our jobs. If you had self-fixing material, what's going to happen to all the body shop guys? You know, as we get robot kiosks, what's going to happen to all the fast food workers? As we get artificial intelligence, I don't know, what's going to happen to the call centers? And we got Watson who could take the place of a doctor. We got an Android app that can diagnose mental illness. Think about it. Bill Gates, actually, I have a Bill Gates story. Let me get to that page. Bill Gates actually said this. And you know, for as evil as I think Gates is now, I always believed in him way back. And I used to watch his yearly Microsoft Address of the Future. I don't remember what the official name of that was, but every year he would put out his prediction for the future. And I always listened to it. And you know why? Because he usually was right. Because he was on the leading edge of developing or helping to develop these technologies, what they called quote unquote disruptive technologies. So he knew what was coming. And I used to think disruptive technologies were good. It took us into the future. Take us to the 21st century. I'm not liking the 21st century much anymore. Because you know what? It's run by a bunch of psychopaths who are turning around and pointing to all of us people that are going, hey, what the F are you doing? Saying we're the psychopaths. And this is like dystopian nightmare on steroids. There's going to be something wrong with every single one of us. And you know why? Because the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies are all going to make bank under Obamacare. And what? The federal government's already providing subsidies and bailouts to the insurance companies who are losing money? Oh, yes, they are. I just saw that the other day. There was a large chunk of change that was going to insurance companies. I don't remember why, but it was some loss because of Obamacare and the lack of fees or whatever. They were going to start giving them taxpayer dollars on the backside to make sure that those poor little insurance companies didn't lose any money. Just pisses me off. Oh yeah. Brain project. You know, I gotta put this feed out here for you guys, cause SLC Mike, especially you, this would probably give you months of reading. There's so many stories out here on this, Before the First Cup Facebook page. This is the page that went all blank a couple weeks ago. All my DARPA brain psycho research links, articles, PDFs, whatever is all out here. Pretty crazy stuff. But I wanted to find the story on Bill Gates. So, uno momento, por favor. Oh, yeah, hey, we didn't talk about this dude either. Do you guys know that, Keith Alexander, who had been the former head of the NSA, we read all about him last summer. I think we spent 3 days on that article, reading about all of the evil that he was in charge of. All the technology and all the scariness and all the branches and all the organizations. I mean, the NSA is massive. Well, Keith Alexander is now retired. And there is a new psycho-looking dude who is from Navy Intelligence who has taken the helm. I just want to read a little excerpt here. quote, a longtime Navy intelligence officer, this dude's last name is Rogers. Rogers succeeded U.S. Army General Keith Alexander last month and avoided faulting his predecessor in an interview. Rogers said he had told the rank and file at the NSA that they should keep on as before, but come forward internally with anything that they felt to be improper. So how's that for new NSA controls? Hey, NSA employees, keep doing what you're doing, spying endlessly without warrant on every American, recording and surveilling even the littlest butterfly. But if you ever feel like this is going against your morals, please come and tell me. I mean, what a crock of shit. I want you guys to see this dude. Tell me if this dude is not evil. I'm going to drop this in. There you go. I just dropped that in a chat. It's a Reuters article. Reuters.com. Anyone who is listening away from chat wants to see this crazy dude's face. I mean, this is a scary picture. This dude, and, you know, I've talked about this before, and there's all kinds of studies where they profile personalities, and then they do symmetry on a face. Have you ever seen that, where they use the cameras and they do facial symmetry? And they show, like, people who literally have, like, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, two sides, their two sides of their faces are very different. Meaning, you know, he's got a hidden evil side. And just looking at the expression on this dude's face, I mean, he looks like he's really intense. He's in an interview, conversing. But he's got the raised eyebrow and the teeth together with, like, this sinister smile. I know when I saw this, I was like, this dude's the new head of the NSA? Put on his seatbelt. Anyway, if anyone outside of chat wants to see the dude's face, it's a Reuters story. It's probably from a few weeks ago. Yeah, it was May 12th. Titled New NSA Chief Vows More Transparency for Embattled Agency. If you search a couple of those words, I'm sure you'll come up with it. There was a summit at the UN a few weeks back. I don't know if we actually talked about this, where they finally started talking about the morality of killer robots. It's something that the Pentagon has had on their plate for a long time, and these autonomous robots, and giving them the ability to make life or death decisions. Now, they're saying, of course, that will never happen without some sort of human intervention, you know, to make the decision to kill. Well, that's as of today. I'm going to say that at some point in the future, there probably won't be any human decision involved in whether or not that drone who just 320 pointed facial recognitioned your face, you are on the combatant list. It doesn't have to be a big bomb they drop on you, laser beam into the skull. You know, who knows what weaponry they have today. But with that Argus, I just saw a story yesterday when I was scrolling through the 10,000 DARPA emails I need to catch up on, and it was about that Argus drone that we looked at way back when, 1.8 gigapixel highest resolution camera ever that can stay in the sky at 24,000 feet up and do 24/7 surveillance, beam live, and archived, mind you, in HD for law enforcement. So they can go, what? There was a purse snatching on the corner of 8th and Vine. All right. Well, hey, bzz, 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 let's get to 8th and Vine. Let's hit reverse. Oh, look at There's the car. Hey, there's the perp. Look, beep. Oh, let's zoom in. Bzz, 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 bzz. Oh, there's his license plate. It's a blue Dodge, blah, blah, blah. Hey, there's a photograph. Let's put it on all of our electronic billboards so we can identify the running man. Guys, I'm telling you, that's real technology already. And some people are crying foul. Now, I don't know if you're going to perpetrate a crime and then you get caught by technology. I would say maybe you should have understood what technology is out there better and been a little more covert, maybe. I mean, it's kind of silly to say it's not fair. Now they can catch me being a bad guy with technology. But on the other hand, from the end of privacy, I don't want some asshole in some office in Seattle at his whim to be able to zoom in and backtrack and follow my car and see where I went and who I talked to. Screw you! None of your fucking business. How's that? And oh, look! She blew a stop sign. Send her a ticket. There's her license plate, you know? I mean, eventually things are going to get smart enough so they don't even have to, like right now, they got all this footage, and I'm sure that a lot of this is probably going to places like that massive NSA data center. But don't forget, Amazon jumped in quite a while ago, hosting the huge project for the CIA. I was reading a story about that the other day. I've laughed a few times. Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, decided to tango with the CIA. Bezos also bought, I believe it was the Washington Post out of DC. But what they asked Amazon to do, at first I thought Amazon was hosting CIA data in their cloud. But what they actually did for the CIA is built a duplicate Amazon. Do you know how huge the Amazon data center is? I mean, I don't have statistics off the top of my head, but it's massive. You want to do large format data collection, cloud collection, doing mass calculations and website hosting on a global level of millions of users to be able to do transactions? You go to Google. You get a cloud app and you pay some good money. You know, thousands a month for them to host. But you got on-demand power. You got unlimited, just about, users able to come in. Especially if you're a big enterprise, you're going to need somebody like Amazon to host your stuff. There's no way that you or I will ever be able, and most companies for that matter, will ever be able to afford A and B, manage a data center of that size on your own. And especially if you're talking about like doing a video streaming app like YouTube. There's no way, you know, people say, well, screw YouTube. We want to do something else. Well, guess what, people? That's why there aren't a lot of alternative YouTubes out there. Do you know how expensive that stuff is? And you know how much hardware goes into making all that streaming smooth and happy? I mean, remember when we were doing the streaming video here? And after like 10 people, stuff would start to get choppy. Because I was renting a 2 gig server, 2 gig of memory. I don't know, I think I might have had 10, maybe 10 gig of storage came with it. Plus all the other apps were running on there. That was like $40 a month for 10 people to watch videos. I had to kill that because it was just a big waste of money. You have to use a massive hosted service. So anyway, to get back. So the CIA convinced, or did a business deal, and who knows, I have not seen any dollar value on that, by the way. If anybody happens to stumble across that, I'd be interested to see how much that cost them. And I'm sure it's out there, I just really haven't had time to look, but the CIA had Amazon create them a duplicate Amazon specifically for the CIA data. Now, how nice, with all these drones, autonomous drones. And, look at how they commercialize this stuff. So Amazon, it would be interesting to see how long it is going to take for Amazon to start doing their beta for delivering in 10 minutes or less via drone. I have major problems with that. I'll tell you where I wouldn't have major problems with that. Would be at 2:00 in the morning when I'm still up working and I'd really like a pizza. Wouldn't that be great? You could do drone delivery pizza at 2 a.m. I think it would be fun. All right. So where do we go from here? I was trying to find the Bill Gates story talking about all of our jobs going away with disruptive technologies. But look, I'm on my page and I find an RT clip. This is probably from a few weeks ago. Scientists close to reading minds. Should we be scared? Yes, not only are they going to fix all of us mentally ill after running us through an Android app, but they're going to be able to read our minds as well. And hey, don't let me forget, because I want to get back to, we haven't talked about now the other one in California. So we had the stabber shooter guy, the Santa Barbara dude. Then we had the other guy that they were on a nationwide manhunt. He was armed and dangerous. They found explosives in his apartment. They caught him yesterday. But I want to play some of that because Mr. Jimmy Funky and I were talking about that yesterday or the day before. How it was such a setup. They never really told you how or why they got a search warrant for his apartment. And I heard a story yesterday that it was based upon internet searches. Yes, internet searches. Pre-crime. He was searching a couple things that they apparently deemed dangerous. So they got a search warrant and they SWAT teamed his house. And they say they found explosives. But he was nowhere to be found, nor were there any bombs. Now, they never told you what kind of explosives. I mean, it could have been C4. I think if it was C4, they probably would have played that up because that's ratings, people. But I was thinking back to a couple months ago, and there was a story out of California or Oregon, and it was up near Zori somewhere. And it was this big deal, the neighborhood, they were going to start evacuating because this crazy dude had all these explosives in his house, and there were so many explosives that it was too dangerous to remove them, so they had to burn his house down. It comes out, the tons of explosives that it was so dangerous that they couldn't remove them from the house was black powder. And when they listed, they were trying to make this dude out to be like some sort of psychopath. When they listed all the items he had, it sure sounded to me like he was a reloader. Because the price of ammo was all crazy and you couldn't get it. That makes you a scary person. That makes you a terrorist. That means the bomb squads come in and they burn your house down because you are such a danger and evacuate your neighborhood. What the hell is that? And now, internet searches are going to get you FBI SWAT teamed. I don't know about you, but I had a question come up yesterday, I made some comment about I want the FBI showing up here, and I get this answer, why? What happens? What do you mean what happens? We've been watching this progression as it's been continuing, and now it's to the point of utmost absurdity. 9 and 12-year-old girls in internet searches are gonna land you in jail. 9 and 12-year-old girls would land you in jail anyway, but 9 and 12-year-old girls being arrested and doing internet searches, maybe innocently, who knows, maybe you're in a bad mood, and you had 3 or 4 beers and you're feeling especially evil tonight. I don't know. Isn't the mind the playground? You can think about things and not act on them. I've thought some pretty horrible things in my day. Not that I would ever do any of them, but I've been mad enough to have some bad thoughts. That's therapy. That's how you get that out of you, so you don't act on it. If you're repressed all the time, one day you're just gonna explode. At least when you can play things out in your mind, it allows you to walk that fine line between right and wrong. It allows you to have a blank canvas to think about things and decide what side of morality you're on, right? That's why robots have no morality. And the fact that we're going to depend on DARPA and the DOD to program robots with their own morality, get out of here. Their morality is cold-blooded killer. But now they're the same people that are writing the Android apps to decide whether or not you and I are crazy. Whether or not we get the brain nanobots to reprogram us and make us better. Alright, so here's his RT story. Scientists close to reading minds. Should we be scared?
Well, mind reading is a far-off notion that most people associate with a science fiction plot. But it seems this futuristic technology is seriously being explored. We're just learning that researchers at the University of California, Berkeley are using brain scanners to identify which face someone is looking at merely from their brain activity. And that means scientists may have found a way into reading our innermost thoughts. So just how close are we to moving toward a Minority Report reality? To discuss this more earlier, I spoke with RT's Anastasia Churkina from our New York studio. I first asked her what exactly these scientists discovered.
Well, Amira, it looks like while we were still taking our time getting used to the idea that our phone calls are monitored, that every single activity we do online is traceable and accessible, science certainly hasn't been asleep and has been moving forward in terms of the capabilities it might eventually have when it comes to mind reading. And while certainly prognosis differs on when exactly this might be doable on a more public and less invasive way, certainly it looks like we may soon reach the time when we don't just have to think about what we say or do, but basically think about what we think, because several interesting reports have been coming out and discovery leaps being made, being able to basically decode thoughts, analyzing people's brain activity. We saw a recent study come out of Yale where a group of scientists was essentially able to reconstruct faces using brain scanners that were taken while volunteers were looking at particular faces, and then by using computers and math algorithms by basically reconstructing the faces that people had previously seen. So this in itself, they say, is something that was done for the first time. The accuracy of this was roughly from 60 to 70%, but they're saying if this is the kind of research that continues to move forward, many leaps could be made in terms of being able to reconstruct memories, even dreams, and people's imagination, and certainly this seems like something of very far in the future. Analysts and experts and scientists are certainly debating that. Also, an interesting research in Kyoto was conducted where, also analyzing brain activity, people were trying to get closer and closer to being able to decipher human dreams, which certainly is also a pretty interesting type of research. Also, two-way brain communication. This is something that so far scientists were able to do with just mice, but there was an experiment conducted in the US where one scientist was able to control the motions of another one using the internet, and it wasn't very accurate. All of this is very in the first stages, but they're saying that this is the type of brain activity research that may eventually be able to lead to mind-reading capabilities. And certainly the technology is not anywhere close so far to being able to do that, but we're getting first sort of glimmers into what it is that the universe might be able to do in the nearest time. But for now, Amira, you and I are okay. We're free to think whatever we want without...
We're all right. So far, we're all right, but we're getting there. There's lots of discussion, of course, over whether this technology could be a good thing or a bad thing for humanity in the long term. Is there anything being discussed at this point about, possible privacy concerns?
Well, of course, I think that applies to many different aspects of science. Of course, there's been questions throughout history on whether or not certain developments should or not be applied in this or other particular way, and this certainly continues to be a discussion already in terms of possible mind-reading capabilities, even though this is something that's very just kind of starting. Lots of questions, ethical questions, privacy questions exist in terms of where could the line be drawn when it comes to reading the thoughts of other people, how to use it for good purposes, such as brain research, research and, helping people with certain brain disabilities and memory disabilities and so on, and maybe solving potentially crimes, but also how to make sure that this is something that's not completely intrusive. And that's something that it looks like is just going to have to be solved on a step-by-step basis as this research continues.
So the $1 million question is, how far are we away from seeing this technology really evolve?
Well, Amira, analysts are certainly really debating this. Some scientists are saying, well, let's give it a couple of decades. Others are saying this is not going to happen within even our lifetimes by any means, that only 1/1,000,000th of the capabilities in terms of this research has been reached. But the most popular opinion I've seen, that possibly within the next 50 years, they could definitely come a little closer to being able to decipher what we think.
Wow, well, very incredible research. RT correspondent Anastasia Churkina, thanks.
I don't know. They're thinking like maybe 20 years. I'm telling you, some of the stuff that I've seen out of Johns Hopkins University, we looked at some of that with the massive brain database that they have already, from in vitro through, I don't know what the oldest age was, but they had been scanning children. They have this massive database, and that's up in that region is now where they're doing a lot of this brain research with the PTSD. So I don't know, guys. I'm going to drop this in the chat for you if anybody wants that video clip. That to me is scary. Oh, there it goes. That to me is scary because Minority Report, absolutely. We watched that movie. And if you're doing, first step is an internet search makes you a criminal. Second step is a bad thought makes you a criminal. Didn't the Catholic Church, wasn't it thought, word, and deed? They were all sins. You can't even think about sex because it's a sin. Purity of mind. They're just going to make us all drooling fools, and then nobody will care. All right, I want to get over really quick to the dude in California, the other dude in California. Let me think. My computer is having choke issues. But that's okay. I'll sing. Please, no. All right. Now let me think. Who was this dude? Oh, yes. This dude was the dude that went on the run because of a few internet searches he did. Now, I don't know. He was a political... I'm trying to remember the word that they used for him. Like a political assistant, a political... I don't know. He supported some political groups. He was a political activist. That's what he was. So first of all, when I hear that, that leads me to say he pissed somebody off. Right. But they interviewed people that knew him and knew him quite well. And they were like, wow, that's really uncharacteristic of him. That bomb making material in his apartment? This sounds like such a setup. But again, hey, we gotta get the FBI SWAT team in there because of a few searches. Here we go.
Mr. Chamberlain, 42 years of age, was arrested by San Francisco police officers yesterday at approximately 6:30 p.m. Pacific time near Christie Field without incident following a nationwide search since last Saturday. Mr. Chamberlain was wanted by the FBI for allegedly possessing explosive materials in his residence.
This suspect, Mr. Chamberlain, was a very dangerous and desperate person. I think that you could tell from Facebook and social media posts attributed to him yesterday. That was only escalating.
We had information that he had items of great concern to us in his residence, and some of that was corroborated when we executed our search warrant at that location. He was. We did not know where he was. at that time, and that's what resulted in the significant attempts to try and find him before he had an opportunity to do anything. Not saying that he
fucking kidding me
was planning any of those types of activities, but we just wanted to make sure that public safety was number one, and we were going to take care of that mission.
Are you fucking kidding me? Holy shit! Did you hear that? So this was his nationwide manhunt, armed and dangerous. This was the shit from 2 days ago. Today they're like, well, he had Facebook posts and it was of some concern to us, and we didn't quite know where he was, and we wanted to make sure that he was safe and that it was public safety. So this dude, did he not even know that the FBI had executed a search warrant on his apartment and he was just out maybe for the weekend visiting friends? And there's this nationwide manhunt for him being what the fuck? Here, hold on. We are going to find the story from 2 days ago, because this is after they catch him now, and you hear them backpedaling. But literally, from 2 days ago, they make this guy sound like he's the next underwear bomber. Oh, here. California man wanted by FBI admitted morbid fantasies. Now, when I saw that, I'm thinking to myself, morbid fantasies, again, very subjective, number one. One's morbid fantasy might be someone else's, like, heaven. I've had some pretty sick friends before. I've had some pretty sick ideas. You know, that's a subjective term, morbid. And I don't think, and hey, they don't even tell you what these morbid fantasies really are. I mean, I think he was having some anger issues. He, again, another one who was jilted. So anyone who's been jilted and has depression, right? You're in the DSM now. Anyway. But morbid fantasies, when I hear that, I think sex with corpses. Well, even if this dude was having sex with corpses, does that give the FBI a right to get a search warrant and go ransack this dude's apartment? It's pretty gross. I don't know. Some states it's probably illegal. You know, I'm not judging anybody or anything, but morbid fantasies. So, here, wait. So this was from 2 days ago. Let's hear about his morbid fantasies that caused the execution of the search warrant. Maybe. Here it comes.
There is a nationwide manhunt tonight for a San Francisco man suspected of possessing explosive materials. 42-year-old Ryan Chamberlain is described as a political and media consultant. John Blackstone on why the FBI is so concerned about him.
The manhunt for Ryan Chamberlain began as a hazardous materials team searched his San Francisco apartment, along with some 24 federal agents, local police, and firefighters. Sources say investigators found no working bombs in the apartment, but gathered explosive materials, now being studied in an FBI lab. Chamberlain's friends and associates received an online message this morning. Its source can't be verified, but it claims to be from Chamberlain and says, so much was broken from this past year and a half. I guess it was just insurmountable, and the time's up.
I had no idea that he was struggling with these demons.
Alex Clements, a San Francisco political consultant, knows Chamberlain and briefly employed him.
This note does seem shocking because more than a threat to people, it does seem to be a suicide note.
It appears in its title, which is goodbye, and a lot of the language in it, if you're reading this, it means I wasn't there to stop it, to be a suicide note.
In the note...
So wait, being suicidal now makes you a psychopath too? Makes them bring in over 24 law enforcement officials to, like, hijack your home and search it.
Chamberlain complains about breaking up with a girlfriend and losing a job. I already had a tendency to slip into depression. This one hit me hard. I explored myriad ways I could put an end to what I was going through and scoured the internet, absorbing fuel from morbid fantasies.
It's those morbid fantasies that may be worrying the FBI. The FBI spokesman here in San Francisco says there's no immediate threat to public safety, Maurice, but he warns that Chamberlain could be armed and dangerous.
John Blackstone, thank you.
So, morbid fantasies made him armed and dangerous. Feeling suicidal over losing a job and being jilted by a girlfriend makes it a nationwide manhunt. And we heard the first clip, which was after they caught him now. They're like, we just wanted to make sure he was okay and that you were I just can't even get over the psychopathy of what they're doing here. And they're ramping this all up. They're making this guy into some sort of demon. He had demons! Demons! Seriously? He searched morbid fantasies on the internet and posted goodbye. You know, to me it sounds like somebody who's depressed who's looking for attention from his friends on Facebook. Who doesn't have a friend like that? Who's everything always sucks. And they're always giving you a sob story about how much their life sucks. Because they want attention. It's called an attention whore. All of our lives suck. Who's happy? I think the way the world is right now, we have every right to look at the world and go, it sucks. Do you know what? We all find our little tiny moments of joy, a little bit of sunshine. That doesn't mean a SWAT team should come search my house because I think the world sucks at times. There's one more clip. I see one here. Actually, it might have been one of the ones that Jimmy commented on. Hold on, let me scroll down because that was the one that literally went out. And, I mean, you were like, what a freaking setup. And yeah, the guy was a political consultant. Notice how they don't mention who he was consulting for, if he was right or left, if he was a radical. But, I could guarantee you he probably pissed somebody off. Oh yeah, in the beginning they were coming out saying he might have had ricin too. Which is why the hazardous material group were in there. And if you see the teams that went in there, they were in full hazmat gear with respirators and everything. I mean, this whole thing stunk from the very first second. And you see how they are getting people so freaking scared, guys. Guys, I see this happening. They are going to take this to such a level that it'll be easy for them to point to any of us and go, wow, look, mentally unstable, you need treatment. And your friends and family are going to give you up and let them hold you down like they did in freaking Georgia for that search warrant blood draw in one of those chairs strapped down, arms, legs, and head, with the nurse coming in, sticking the thing in your arm. Let's go give you some of those nanobots that'll go fix your brain and make you all better. Honey, we're gonna make you all better. I don't know, anybody ever see 12 Monkeys? I've talked about it before. That's all I think about. 12 Monkeys. Yeah, there were 2 more clips. I don't want to play all these clips of this guy, but there was one, and I don't remember. Jimmy commented on 2 of them, so I don't remember which one it was. So I think we're gonna have to listen to both. But just listen, these were the first stories that came out when they were chasing this dude. I mean, be aware, people. You know, I hate to have to censor myself and censor what I say at times, but I do. And there are things that I'd love to say on here, but I don't. And you know why? Because every single one of us now is being watched and recorded and bagged and tagged and profiled and put on a list for someday soon. Hopefully I'm not on the red list. I don't want to go first. Maybe put me on the orange list. So I have time to run. All right, here. Let's see which one this is. The one in the hazmat suits is the one I want you guys to hear.
A San Francisco man is on the run this morning from the FBI. They think he could be armed with explosives. Agents raided the apartment of Ryan Kelly Chamberlain on Saturday. Bob Orr is in Washington with the nationwide alert. Bob.
I'm going to stop for a second because in the beginning they said he was on the run. Now that very first clip you heard didn't sound like he was on the run. They didn't say he was on the run. They found him. He They wanted to make sure he was safe and that no one else was in danger. They didn't say, oh, the manhunt ended when we captured him. He gave himself up. He probably went away for the weekend to go clear his head from the lost job and the jilted girlfriend. He went and hung out with his friends, smoked pot and rode ATVs. Had a bunch of beers, woke up face down drunk in an alley somewhere and felt all better. Isn't that the way it's been done for generations? Yes, I think so.
Good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Well, this began when the FBI developed source information that Ryan Kelly Chamberlain II may have been trying to build explosives inside his San Francisco apartment. So, this weekend, more than 24 FBI agents, along with hazmat teams, searched his building. They didn't find Chamberlain, but sources tell us they did recover explosive materials and what appear to be component parts that could be used in making bombs. So,
explosives that appear to be parts that could be used in making bombs. But they had to take him to the lab. They appear to be. Yeah. Here, this is the video with them in the full hazmat suits. If anybody saw that, Atlas robot, the Atlas robot that then they put into the military, ABC suit. NBC, right? Nuclear, chemical, biological. Where it's kind of got like the face mask and the respirator and the full head thing. That's what they're wearing to go into this dude's apartment.
Sources say there were no completed operational devices found inside that home. Early reports also suggested the potentially toxic substance ricin was discovered, but law enforcement officials say that does not appear to be the case. Still, all of the seized materials are now at an FBI lab for additional analysis.
So I'd be interested, did he search ricin? Did he search bomb? I mean, I don't know. I've searched ricin before, especially when there were lots of ricin attacks. I was like, oh, isn't that castor bean stuff? I mean, are you free to still use search engines or not? We know they're scraping all of our history. And should we start, like, all searching really twisted terms? Like, come up with the grossest, most twisted things you could think of and let's all start searching them at the same time? Like a sick, twisted search blast for the NSA? This is making my face hot because I just can't even get over this poor dude. And I really want to know who he was a political consultant for. Someone who went against Feinstein?
The FBI bulletin warns that Chamberlain should be considered armed and dangerous. There is some fear, we should say, that he might be carrying explosives. He was last seen Saturday south of San Francisco. Now the FBI says it's looking for a white Nissan Altima with either California or Texas plates. Police also say they're watching train stations and airports. It's believed he's traveling alone. On his About Me page, Chamberlain described himself, quote, as a political junkie and oft-times operative. Some associates say he's a little bit eccentric, but sources tell us there's no evidence at all connecting him to any kind of imminent plot. Still.
So he's a little bit eccentric. They pulled up his social media About Me page, so they had that all ready and waiting with his picture on the news. They had his car. His friends had given him up, saying he was, last they saw him, he was south of San Francisco. I mean, maybe he was going to get a hooker in Mexico, make him feel better. That makes him a criminal? They're like, well, we had no evidence that, but still the same. And this is bullshit. I hope this guy sues the freaking pants out of these assholes. I hope he can. I hope they didn't find anything that was incriminating. I mean, again, explosives. The last time we heard this in California with that house, it was black powder for reloading. He had reloading gear and everything. So I'd love to hear what they found. And in the one clip here, they said, well, it was sealed. They weren't going to tell us what they found there.
One senior law enforcement official, Charlie, said, considering what was found in the apartment, we obviously need to find the guy.
I don't even know what to say. So they bust into your home when you're not there, they take all your shit, and then they put out a nationwide manhunt with your picture all over the news saying you're armed and dangerous. Did they ever think to call a cell phone? And say, hey, dude, where are you? This is the FBI SWAT team and hazmat guys that just ransacked your home. Where are you? We're sending a team right now with the nanobots. You'll be fixed instantly. All right, I think that this is as good a time as any to go through the two stories that we opened the show with. Hold on. I gotta find them. All right, so the one is the DARPA story about the new brain-computer interface that MIT is developing to control feelings. This is out of the MIT Technology Review. Military funds brain-computer interfaces to control feelings. A $70 million program will try to develop brain implants to be able to regulate emotions in the mentally ill. We've talked about this before. They released the video a few months ago of the nanobots in the brain functioning for the first time autonomously, making repairs and helping restore memories, if you remember that, from traumatic brain injury. And in that story, they had also continued on that not only do they hope to be able to restore memories, but also to be able to remove memories for those who have gone through traumatic experiences. Now again, like I said before, who hasn't been in the throes of depression at some point in their life? And though it's miserable, and it's really painful, it helps build character. It helps toughen you up. It makes you not a pussy. You need some hurt and some scabs that heal. You gotta learn to protect yourself. You never learn to protect yourself if everything's always done for you and everything's always happy and you get a reward just for completing, and there is no winners or losers. We all have to feel good. I say bullshit. That's what's wrong with all these kids now. None of them learn to fall down and rip their knee open and cry over it. We all wear padding now, so we don't fall down and rip our knee open. Oh, Junior, you never learned how to do math? That's okay. You knew that 5 and 7 were below 10. We're going to give you an award. And this is just, what's up is down. We have mutated. We have warped the sense of right and wrong and good and bad. And, I mean, pain is not bad. You know, I'm of the type, parenting-wise, there are two types of parents. There are the ones that flit around their kids and never let them be exposed to anything that might be objectionable or anything that might be deemed inappropriate, to try to protect them from it. But if the kids never see it, if the kids are never exposed to it, they're going to be naive. They're not going to be prepared. They're not going to be able to distinguish between right and wrong because they've only been shown one side. All right, I'm going to read the story because we're down to the last 20 minutes here. Researcher Jose Carmina has worked for years training McCaw, however you say it, monkeys, to move computer cursors and robotic limbs with their minds. He does so by implanting electrodes into their brains to monitor neural activity. Now, as a part of a sweeping $70 million program funded by the U.S. military, ta-da! Carmina has a new goal: to use brain implants to read and then control the emotions of mentally ill people. This week, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, more affectionately known as DARPA, awarded 2 large contracts to the Massachusetts General Hospital and to the University of California, San Francisco. Hey! Right where the crazy depressed dude was. Maybe they'll make him a subject. They'll fix him all up. They'll say, you know what? You don't have to do prison time if you just go through our program and let us put in an implant to fix your mental instability. Then you'll be free to go. I mean, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but how convenient is that? And the last two psychopaths took place in California. Manet Napolitano is now head of the university system there. Anyway, okay, so Massachusetts General Hospital and the University of California, San Francisco to create electrical brain implants capable of treating 7 psychiatric conditions, including addiction, depression, and borderline personality disorder. Wow. Wouldn't that be like the biggest net ever? I think that probably every single American could probably be diagnosed with one of those 3 things. Addiction, depression, or borderline personality disorder. Brain-computer interfaces to fix addiction and depression. That's really unbelievable. The project builds on expanding knowledge about how the brain works, the development of microelectronic systems that can fit in the body, and substantial evidence that thoughts and actions can be altered with well-placed electrical impulses to the brain. Quote, imagine if I have an addiction to alcohol and I have a craving, says Carmina, who is a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Ha ha ha! Of course he is. And involved in the UCSF-led project. We could detect that feeling, so the feeling that you're having that craving, and then simulate inside the brain to stop it from happening. The U.S., oh, here we go. The U.S. faces an epidemic of mental illness among who? Veterans, including suicide rates 3 or 4 times that of the general public. But drugs and talk therapy are of limited use, which is why the military is turning to neurological devices, says Justin Sanchez, manager of the DARPA program known as Subnets, for systems-based neurotechnology for emerging therapies. That's where the acronym comes from, SBNET, Subnets. Of course, playing on subnets where for IP addressing in networks. That was kind of a play on words. We want to understand the brain networks in neuropsychiatric illnesses, develop technologies to measure them, and then do precision signaling to the brain, says Sanchez. It's something completely different and new. These devices don't yet exist. Well, yes, they do. Just not in the public realm yet. We've already seen videos of them. I need to send this to Dr. Simon. I think he would be horrified. Under the contracts, which are the largest awards so far, supporting President Obama's we've talked about it, Brain Initiative, which of course, remember, we have all of these big tech giants that are in the middle of all this, including Google, Microsoft, and Motorola. Why would they be involved in the Brain Project? The brain mapping program launched by the White House last year, Obama's Brain Initiative. The University of California, San Francisco will receive as much as $26 million, and Mass General up to $30 million. Companies including the medical device giant Medtronic and startup Cortera Neurotechnologies, a spin-off from UC Berkeley's wireless laboratories, will supply the technology for the effort. Initial research will be in animals, but DARPA hopes to reach human tests within 2 to 3 years. Now again, I am pretty certain, and I guess I'll have to find it for tomorrow, but I am pretty certain that that video with those little nanobots in the brain wasn't a human. Because that was the first time ever. And I remember we made a big deal about that. I actually have that on my Before the First Cup page. I'll have to dig that up. One thing that they say in here that's interesting is they mention this Medtronics. I remember that company, I believe, doing some research and development with Texas A&M in regards to that mitochondrial or mRNA, sometimes called the RNAi research for the GMO tobacco universal flu vaccine as well. I am pretty sure that that was the company that was involved in that, but I would have to double check on that. This research builds on a small but quickly growing market for devices that work by stimulating nerves both inside the brain and outside it. More than 110,000 Parkinson's patients have received deep brain stimulators built by Medtronic that control body tremors by sending electrical impulses into the brain. More recently, doctors have used such simulators to treat severe cases of obsessive compulsive disorder. And last November, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved NeuroPace, the first implant that records from the brain and then stimulates it. It is used to watch for epileptic seizures and then stop them with electrical impulses. Together, U.S. doctors bill about $2.6 billion worth of neural stimulation devices a year, according to industry estimates. And yes, Mr. Obama had come out and said, with the announcement of that BRAIN project, that the BRAIN project will be the economic stimulus going forward, just as the Genome Project was for the end of the 20th century. So you better believe that they are all salivating and wanting to do anything it takes to get into our brains, get into all of our brains. And you know what? It really works well for them to declare us all as mentally ill and all fixable with some sort of computer brain interface. Why not? Researchers say that they are making rapid improvements in electronics, including small implantable computers, and under its program, Mass General will work with Draper Laboratories in Cambridge, Mass. to develop new types of stimulators. The University of California San Francisco team is being supported by microelectronics and wireless researchers at UC Berkeley, who have created several prototypes of miniaturized brain implants. Michael Maharabiz, a professor at Berkeley's Electrical Engineering Department, says that the Obama Brain Initiative and now the DARPA money has created a quote-unquote feeding frenzy around the new technology. It is a great time to do tech for the brain, he said. Guys, this is all just a big fat setup. But it's all for our own good. Look it's gonna make us all better. It's gonna fix Granny's Parkinson's. Give it up. Next thing you know, like I said before, they'll be telling you it cures cancer. Line up for your implant. The new line of research has been dubbed, quote, effective brain-computer interfaces, unquote, by some, meaning electronic devices that alter feelings, perhaps under direct control of a patient's thoughts and wishes. Basically, we're trying to build the next generation of psychiatric brain stimulators, says Alec Widge, a researcher on the Mass General team. Darren Doherty, a psychiatrist who directs Mass General's Division of Neurotherapeutics, says one aim could be to extinguish fear in veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Fear is generated in the oblongata, a part of the brain involved in emotional memories. But it can be repressed by signals in another region, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. The idea would be to decode a signal in the oblongata showing overactivity, then stimulate elsewhere to suppress that fear. Such research isn't without ominous overtones. In the 1970s, Yale University neuroscientist Jose Delgado showed he could cause people to feel emotions like relaxation or anxiety using implants called stimulosievers. But Delgado, also funded by the military, left the U.S. after congressional hearings in which he was accused of developing totalitarian mind control devices. Gee, ya think? Now, how interesting that in the 1970s, some sort of brain stimulation device might be construed as some sort of totalitarian mind control device. But oh, how times change. Because now those of us who are calling that as the reality of the situation are now the ones who are being deemed as crazy or misfits or needing fixing. According to scientists funded by DARPA, the agency has been anxious about how the subnets program could be perceived, and it has appointed an ethics panel to oversee the research. Yes, there is a military ethics panel. They are also applying them toward the autonomous murdering robots that they are planning on unleashing on all of us. Makes me feel safe. Like I said before, how subjective are morals? I know I wouldn't want to be under the morals of the DOD. Their morals are a lot different than my morals. I'll play that clip again tomorrow. I'm running out of time. I want to get to the Android app too. Psychiatric implants would in fact control how mentally ill people act, although in many cases indirectly by changing how they feel. For instance, a stimulator that stops craving for cocaine would alter an addict's behavior. It's to change what people feel and to change what they do. Those are ultimately tied, says Doherty. Doherty says a brain implant would only be considered for patients truly debilitated by mental illness who can't be helped by drugs and psychotherapy. And this is never going to be a first-line option. Oh, you have PTSD, let's do surgery, says Doherty. It's going to be for people who don't respond to any other treatments. Yet maybe until you get hauled off and held down and shot up. Once it's the oblongata, I believe that's right at the base of the skull. Wouldn't be too hard to have one of those little shooty gun things that they use now for vaccines, needleless. Get that nanotech right into the right spot. All taken care of. Just sit back and relax now. It'll all be over in about a half an hour. Alright. We got like 2 minutes. So I might have to continue this tomorrow, but the story isn't too long either. App to help detect war zone PTSD and brain injury expands now to civilian use. Yay! It's called Dana. The Dana app was created for the Defense Department to help diagnose PTSD and brain problems in the field. Now researchers are testing it on sports concussions and for potential use in the rehabilitation centers, hospitals, and with elderly patients. When Corey Latham's company, Anthrotronics, was asked by DARPA to build a technology to help diagnose traumatic brain injury or post-traumatic stress disorder in war zones, she didn't immediately envision technology promising use in the civilian market. Anthrotronics app Dana, which stands for Defense Automated Neurocognitive Assessment, is, quote, designed to give quick insights, almost like a thermometer for brain function. It takes 5 minutes to run through and feels kind of like an Android-based brain game. We then added on more and more capability for the continuum of care, like complete diagnostics, psychological tests, and memory tests, to make it part of a full fleet of tests a physician could deploy. Leveraging the answers respondents give, the response time, and even balance and movement information picked up by the smartphone sensors, Dana, which runs on an Android phone and tablet, gives feedback that a medical professional can then use to help potentially diagnose brain injuries or PTSD. Dana is currently being tested in multiple Defense Department funded clinical trials. And one study done in conjunction with the VA in Hawaii, yeah, the VA is where you want to go, is using it to test for signs of PTSD in returning veterans. Another study at Johns Hopkins University, yes, where they have the huge database of brains, focuses on the treatment of severe depression and is trying to see if the software can pick up indicators of it in the brain. There's also a study at the University of Wisconsin-Madison that's testing Dana on patients with sports-related concussions. Hey, those 12-year-old girls that just murdered their friends were from Wisconsin, I believe. Lathan said that the Pentagon is interested in sports concussions because traumatic brain injuries are difficult to study in war zones, and analogs are needed to understand cognitive function and other effects in trials. Sports are obvious, she added, but unfortunately, you will get a certain amount of concussions from them. The other place besides sports where you can observe this is people coming through emergency rooms, which presents its own issues. Although the technology was designed for the battlefield, Dana is now being promoted for potential use in rehab centers, hospitals, the pharmaceutical industry, and for potential use by caregivers. Over the next few months, Anthrotronics is expected to announce several use cases for Dana designed for caregivers of elderly patients or other loved ones with issues. All right. I am out of time, simply. I got 15 seconds left. I'm sorry, guys. That 2 hours went really fast. I will be back tomorrow, so we will continue on from here. Everybody stick around. Today is Wednesday. Mr. Will Roberts is up. Wednesday night is always a great radio night. Everybody have a wonderful day. I'll drop these into chat. I'll hang out for a little bit. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care.